All right, well, welcome everybody to our District 6 Town Hall, and remind you that we are sort of rotating between neighborhood-specific town hall meetings in the 4 quadrants of our City Council district. There's a very helpful map back there today on the easel, but we try to do one in Linda Vista, one in San Rafael Hills, one in South Orange Grove, and then one in what we call Central City area with issues particular to those neighborhoods. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap and everyone's welcome to all of the meetings. And then we try to do 2 interspersed among those neighborhoods that are district-wide. And today it's a district-wide meeting. So welcome, thank you for taking time out of your summer evening to be here with us. Hardly can believe it's going to be October here very shortly. Halloween items are already in the stores and the like. So we've got a great agenda tonight. We've got, I sort of styled it like a Hollywood Bowl event or something, an evening with Miguel Márquez and Chief Gene Harris. And they're 2 very special public leaders, exemplary public leaders, if I may say. And so I'm really honored to have them here. I also, before we sort of get into all that, as a preliminary matter, I want to thank our fire chief for being here. Chief, good to see you. Thank you. And Captain Eklund is here as well. I think the only thing with these guys need to start working out. I mean, look at them. I think I detect, like a 0.5% of body fat or something. Really. Thank you, sir. But thank you. I hope you know that our district, this goes for police and fire. We have our public safety departments back, and we're so grateful for what you do. We really appreciate everything you do for us. Remember, we have 3 of the city's 8 fire stations in our district. It's nothing I did, I don't think, but the topography and geography of our district, it's very important with something like 76% of our fire department calls for service being medical calls. And indeed, our PD gets involved in medical calls as well from time to time. So those neighborhood fire stations in Linda Vista, 38, and in the San Rafael Hills, 39, are very, very important to us with the populations there. And then, one of the most busy, if not busiest station in the city, 31, is not far from here on Fair Oaks. And as many of you recall, we redid 39 a few years ago. We did a complete retrofit and upgrade, modernized it for men and women firefighters to have appropriate living quarters. And remember, we had a temporary firehouse was it on Annandale Road, if I recall, or San Miguel, one of the streets there. And like the 2 unhappiest days of that neighborhood's life was the day they moved in and then the day they moved out. Because when they moved in, they feared all the calls and sirens and all. And then when they arrived, they realized what great neighbors, what a great thing to have them there. Here. And then we just finished 31's retrofit, and that's a very historic fire station, very important to us. And they were here not far over at some property across from the hospital in temporary quarters, and that was tough. I was down there. I love our public safety departments, and I was down there several times, and they were in trailers. They had the weight yard out in the pavement, and all that, but never a complaint was heard. And now they're back at a beautiful new Station 31. We did the ribbon cutting on that just recently. So, but I want to, before we sort of get into our program, and I want to cover a couple of the things that we've been busy at City Hall, and also then remind you that it's your meeting. We want to talk about whatever you all want to talk about. We'll leave time for some questions, and then we have our traditional raffle at the end. You have to fill out a card to be in the raffle, and you have to be here to win. So, you don't want to be that person that finds out. But I really want to give a big shout out to HMRI. My friend Susan Kane, who many of you may know, is the board chair here. And this has been an outstanding institution in Pasadena for a long, long time. One of these treasures that we have in our city. And we're so grateful to be able to use the space as this building was going up, we were told we want it to be a community gathering place, and it worked out that this event tonight was the first opportunity for my office to be able to do that. So thank you. And I want to just bring Mark Dixon, the COO of HMRI, up for a minute. Maybe you could tell us about our space and what you're up to at HMRI. Yeah, Mark Dixon, can we thank him, please, for...
Thank you very much. Absolutely. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight and joining us here. HMRI is Huntington Medical Research Institutes. We've been here for 70 years in Pasadena. We're a nonprofit biomedical research organization, primarily researching diseases of the brain and heart and the brain-heart connection. And we have several active programs ranging from things looking at brain aging, diseases such as dementia, cardiovascular health, reducing the size of heart attacks. We have an education program that serves the local community here. So we do a lot of wonderful things here in the community. Certainly, we welcome all community members to stop by and check us out, see kind of what we're doing here, and we welcome everybody. And again, thank you for coming, and thank you for coming out tonight to see HMRI.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
We appreciate you. I noticed that Mark and his colleagues very thoughtfully left some brochures out on the front there. Feel free to grab one of those,
Absolutely.
I would assume. And
Please do.
yeah, again, we're proud that you're here and grateful. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody.
So quickly, I want to just cover a little bit of what we've been up to at City Hall. And I know I'm a broken record, but we always seem to be busy. And I'll just sort of jump around a little bit in terms of matters of big importance for us and the whole city. I think first and foremost, top of mind for us in West Pasadena and really increasingly throughout the city is the 710 stub. We won that battle last year. The city now owns fee title to the stub, the trench, the ditch. A bunch of us have other names for it that probably I shouldn't use in polite company. And so now we are in the midst of a visioning process to redevelop that and imagine what it'll look like, for the next 100 years. So we have a working group that's been established citywide, with each council member having a nominee and some other nominees as well. And I think I've shared with you before that we'll be forming, and we're looking to October for the first meeting to have our own West Pasadena working group. I'm sure I shared with you previously that we had as many applicants for the citywide working group from our district as the entire rest of the city did. We really care deeply about this project. It impacts us to some extent heavily, and there's just such a wealth of talent. I mean, as I looked at these applications, so we have a great appointee from our district, but then I've got 24 other people that are equally qualified, frankly. So we'll be rolling that out. We had a good discussion about that just last night at council, and my position was that we need to give the working group more direction in terms of what our vision is on the city council. Ultimately, we're the policymakers. Based on your input and a lot of community outreach, we have to decide sort of what direction we're headed. It's been over a year, hard to believe, since we actually acquired the deed for the property. So, we fought this 60 or 70 year battle, and then we won. And what was that great movie with Robert Redford, the candidate, where he says at the end he wins the race, and he says, what do I do now? That's sort of our responsibility. It's a big one, and there are a lot of ways we could drop the ball on it too. So we're very committed to seeing that through. You probably heard there was, or maybe some of you attended, the bus tour of the areas around the project and all. And it's easy to confuse, but these are actually two different discrete sort of issues, but closely related. We also now have 105 Caltrans homes that will also be repatriated from Caltrans back to, depending on their state, whether they're occupied or not, whether they have tenants who qualify to purchase the homes themselves, or what have you, but we'll be slowly but surely getting those back as well, getting them into the community. And we'll be able to sell some of them for market value, even though we're going to pay the value that the state paid decades ago in eminent domain. We should be able to pay them that and then turn around and sell them for fair market value and then use that money for affordable housing. And I think some of them may be appropriate themselves in their location for affordable housing, but there's a lot of work that's needed. Caltrans is many things, but they're not a particularly effective property manager, real estate manager, or landlord. And they would tell you that themselves. That's not their mission. Their mission's transportation. So very excited about those two initiatives. Another thing we talked about last night is charter reform. You know, we do this from time to time in Pasadena, and there have been a sort of a growing request from many in the community to look at our charter once again and see if it fits what our expectations and ideas are about local governance, as well as some other technical issues that require to be updated, you know, from time to time with our sort of constitutional municipal document. We had a good discussion last night, and the council's clearly headed in the direction which historically is the one we've pretty much always used, which is forming a resident task force to conduct outreach and have studies and then come back to the council with ideas about the charter reform. But we're going to give the task force some specific scope of their mission, if you will. So it won't be a free-for-all. It'll be, here are the 6 or 8 things that we'd like you to study, hear from the community, then come back. And we're aiming, it's kind of ambitious, but we're aiming to get on the agenda for the ballot in November of 2024. It would require a ballot initiative. A lot of moving parts, right? We're going to the voters with a library initiative probably that same election. But we've got a lot of work to do, but good people, I'm sure, that will be appointed. And if you have an interest in that, let me hear Ken Chalkins, my good friend and constituent, longtime resident, was on at least 2 charter reform task forces that I can think of, and he has a knack for it. So we'll have a number of good people, and usually our district, frankly, West Pasadena, ends up, you know, having multiple appointees. Even other council members or the mayor often appoint our residents because, you know, frankly, they're just highly capable and dedicated to the city. So you'll see that coming forward as well. I mentioned Central Library. You know, I've talked for years now about the Renaissance in Pasadena, where we actually, if you look at our city, you know, we have some of these iconic places that our forebears founded and funded, created, built, you know, things like our City Hall or the Civic Auditorium and Convention Center, the YMCA and the YWCA, all of these by, you know, well-known, world-renowned architects and major public works, public places that people could feel proud about. The Rose Bowl, I would count in that same group. But over the course of 100 years, give or take, they needed a lot of upkeep, you know, earthquake retrofit, for example, and more modern technology, you know, for information and for the modern sort of workplace. So we've done almost all of it, right? We did our City Hall, and that came in on budget and on time. We did our Civic Auditorium and our Convention Center the same. We've invested in the Rose Bowl substantially, and that's gone well. There'll be more to come, but the Rose Bowl is thriving, especially with UCLA entering the Big Ten. You know, next year it's going to be a very exciting time. And the final piece, or pieces, if you will, would be the YWCA, YMCA. And we've now got negotiations underway with the YWCA developer applicant that we've chosen. And it's HRI Properties, and their goal is to build a 189-room hotel in the YWCA that preserves the historic structure and feel, but also provides economic development, jobs, and a fun place to eat and stay for people when they're in Pasadena. And then Central Library. And, you know, our central library, very, very important, as all our libraries are. It was red tagged a couple of years ago because of earthquake safety issues, and we're committed to rebuilding that. Forgive me if you've heard me tell this anecdote, but you know, we got the first staff report and it was $9 million. And a few people said, $9 million to retrofit the central library. Wow. And no, that's just to study retrofitting the central library. That's just the initial tranche of environmental and study work that has to go in. We are probably looking at $250 million to renovate that library. So, but we can do it. You know, we're very adept at finding grant money and others. You know, the example I always cite is our city hall. You know, we spent $117 million on our historic city hall, and we did it. And LA had a similar situation with their historic city hall, $550 million. But they're a lot bigger than, you know, 4.5 times what we are, right? So for us, the $117 million of City Hall was a much heavier lift than the $550 million was for LA. So I'm confident with our city manager's leadership and the council working together that we'll be able to do that as well. Lots of other things to talk about. You know, we're gravely concerned about the potential closure of San Rafael School. This is a still breaking story over at the district. I don't know if any of you remember at their high point, the PUSD had 45,000 students. When I became a council member, there were 25,000. Today, there are about 13,000 students in our school district. And that's, if you know anything about education funding, you know, it's very difficult to sustain schools if they don't have adequate enrollment. So the district and the board are faced with really difficult decisions about facilities. A lot of their facilities require a lot of, as per the example I gave of the city institutions, you know, buildings, they require a lot of upkeep, maintenance, and so forth. So we're going to continue to monitor. I will tell you this, if you look at the map of the district and then you look at the rest of the city, which is there also sort of in the key, you know, we have about 20% of the geography, give or take, of the entire city of Pasadena in my council district, what we consider West Pasadena. And if San Rafael closes, we once had 6 elementary schools in the district. If San Rafael closes, we will have none, not one public school. And I think that would be just a real tragedy to completely cut off, you know, our community, that community, the size of that community. If you're going to have a Pasadena Unified School District, you need to make sure that you have schools in at least, you know, every fifth of the city, if you will. You look at George's prime example of this, you know, the support that we provide to the district through PEF, the Pasadena Educational Foundation, the care that we've always given to the libraries that are partnered with each school. You know, each elementary school has a library right down the street, as does San Rafael with the Nithsdale branch, Linda Vista, the same right across the street. There are lots of ways that we support the district. So we are going to be very assertive about this, and I haven't had a chance to share any of this with Miguel, but I think, you know, we're now providing about $7 million in cash every year to the district. And I think, you know, I'm going to certainly be very robust in my view that we have to not cut West Pasadena off from the PUSD. I think it's so important. There's a roundabout project at Avenue 64 that we've presented on to you previously. I think our last town hall was largely dedicated to that. Construction is going to start there in January. We have the Colorado Street Bridge barrier project that's sort of now getting back on track. We have a consultant. There was a sort of an outreach effort that some of you may have participated in by Zoom. There are 4 options. We're going to have to decide whether one of those works, or we need to go back to the drawing board on those. It's a difficult problem. We are just as we find the Caltrans work on the 134 overpass irksome, as I'm sure many of you do. And, we communicate regularly with them. They've changed their signage a number of times, you may have noticed, and they're doing a lot of nighttime work now. So you just have to be real careful. It's not us, it's Caltrans that's out there. And we're looking very forward to having that over with so that we get those on and off ramps back. And finally, I'll just mention there's a cell tower proposal working its way to City Council. We've heard from a lot of you about that. Sort of 10 new cell towers in West Pasadena, and we're concerned about that. And we, as I understand, the application's sort of back to square one. It's going to be resubmitted by the applicant. We're going to be meeting with the applicant and then ensuring that we can regulate that to the maximum of our ability, so going forward. So those are just some of the things that we've been working on. And again, look forward to hearing from any of you at the end of the meeting when we have questions. Please do share. So why don't we start with our city manager? And I want to bring Miguel up and just tell you first of all, how proud I am of the role that I played in recruiting him. It was a very small one, but Miguel is someone that has been in public service literally all of his adult life, maybe with a short coffee break here or there in the private sector, but he's been a lawyer and a public lawyer at a couple of different counties up in Northern California, county counsel's office and county council. He was actually appointed to the bench by Governor Brown, by Jerry Brown, who was so impressed with the work that Miguel had done during the time where they were taking redevelopment away, that he appointed him to the Court of Appeal up in Northern California. So he was a justice of the California Court of Appeal for 4 years, then went back to Santa Clara County and was the chief operating officer of a very large county where I think you had like 20,000 employees and billions of dollars in terms of budget and all. And so I was really delighted when Miguel threw his hat in the ring to come to Pasadena and be our city manager. There were some, there are always, the hater's going to hate. There people will say, well, he was never a city manager. Well, yeah, but you run a county and you run a county council's office, and so much of what we do week in, week out is there's this legal overlay to it, right? So being trained as a lawyer and a judge, I would say that has paid off tremendously for us. We have an exemplary city manager here. So Miguel, come on up and we want to welcome you. Thank you.
Well, thanks. And since you started with that, the interesting thing I've found is Santa Clara County is it's interesting, it has this year about a $12.5 billion budget, and our budget's about $1.25 billion, so it's about 1/10 the size. We have about 2,300 employees, they have 23,000. So I said, well, this is great, I get 1/10 the work. It didn't happen. I don't know how it works, but I think Councilmember Madison used the word busy, and I'd say I'm no longer new because I came August 29th, so I've been here a full year. And the whole year I said, when is it going to slow down? It's got to slow down at some point, and the year's gone by, and I've been doing this work long enough to know that years just kind of repeat themselves. So I've now understood that it's a perpetually busy undertaking, and it's exciting. So wanted to thank HMRI for hosting us. This is terrific, and I especially want to thank all of you for being here. I just love these district meetings because they're always so well attended, and it really speaks to who we are in Pasadena, that we take the time for community engagement. We take the time to come to meetings, to participate on commissions, to be part of working groups, do everything it takes to make this place so special. And I was, in Santa Clara County doing amazing work and had an amazing position. I had the best job up in Northern California, from my perspective, the best public sector job. And I was only going to come down here if I had the best public sector job in Southern California. So I threw my hat in the ring, came down to see it, and just driving around was just an amazing experience. And I said, this place is special. And it's special largely because all of you are here, for example, and engaged in what we do. So let me tell you a little bit about what I've been doing in the last year as your city manager. There's been a lot of change. I would think that a lot of the change happened, at least among the executives in the city, because the pandemic really was an incredible challenge, a 3-year gift that kept on giving. In fact, we all know, I see a lot of you in masks and that's very smart of you to wear masks. We do have a little bit of a resurgence in COVID, and a new different variant they keep writing about. But it took a lot out of people, and I think people, after putting in for 3 years all the work it took to keep society moving forward, said, okay, I've done my service, I'm going to retire. So to sort of summarize it, we have in this city, it's run by an executive team of about 23. The city council appoints 3 of us. They appoint me as a city manager, they appoint the city attorney, and they appoint the city clerk. So that leaves 20, and I appoint the other 20. And of those other 20, I've already appointed more than half in just 1 year. So that's a big change in the leadership. I'm looking here at my notes, and that includes the police chief, who you hear from in a little bit. He started on January 3rd. I remember the date well. Our general manager of water and power, he started January 17th. Our 2 assistant city managers, Brenda Harvey-Williams and David Reyes, our director of planning, Jennifer Page, our director of human resources, Tiffany Jacobs-Quinn, our director of libraries, Tim McDonald, and we just announced our new director of parks, which is Parks, Recreation, Community Services, Coco Panosian. He's coming to us from Glendale. He's got an amazing experience, life experience, professional experience in parks, and he's going to do amazing things with our parks department. The other thing I want to communicate we've worked hard on, the pandemic really walloped us with respect to, finances in many respects, because we had to send people home, the restaurants, sales tax, all that sort of stuff. But I'm pleased to report that this year we were able to once again pass a balanced budget, one that is stable in its outlook. And among the things we were able to accomplish is, we had a bunch of union contracts that we negotiated with our labor partners. You all might be reading about this. I think they're calling it the summer of strikes or something like that. There's a lot of strikes going on. We in Pasadena are very fortunate. We have 9 unions. And when I got here, we had agreements with 2 of them. But over the course of the year, we've gotten 7 more. So we're up to all 9 unions. We have long-term agreements. I think our next one's not up until June 30th of 2026. So that long period of labor peace is going to be very beneficial to help us get the work done. And not only did we enter into those agreements with our labor partners, but we were able to true up the budget to account for the different raises that we gave and maintain a stable outlook on our financing. So that's exciting. I think Councilmember Madison mentioned the Colorado Bridge. I just saw a presentation on it this morning, and I saw for myself the 4 options. And when you look at that, they're going to make presentations to you. If you haven't seen it yet, there's a little QR code on the bottom. You can go point your camera at it, click the button, and it'll give you an option to answer a survey to say which one you prefer from a visual perspective. The explanation I got this morning took about 15 minutes, so you should hear it all, because there's a lot of nuance to all the different designs, and weigh in. Again, it's what makes our city so beautiful, is to have all of this participation to help get to the right answer. On my way back from lunch today, I was coming up Los Robles and I hit Cordova Street. And I was kind of running late, but as I'm driving up there, all of a sudden I get stopped because there was a big machine that was tearing up the street and dumping it into a red dump truck. And I got so happy. You say, what kind of weird person gets happy that they're running late and they're stopped in traffic by a big machine? And it's because, we unfortunately have not had the resources, or for whatever reason, we haven't invested in our streets in the way we should have been. And so a lot of our streets have potholes and they need to be repaired. We've been spending about $5.8 million a year on streets, and that's not been enough. So in this budget, it is balanced, it is stable, but part of what it included is an additional $6 million to do more street repairs. About $3 million of that is going to go into the really old streets that need to be completely dug up and started from scratch, and then others that will just get what they call slurry and seal. But the bottom line is you can drive your car. I have a newer electric car and it's got autopilot, and I want to use it all the time, but I don't, because there's too many potholes, and the autopilot doesn't account for potholes, unfortunately. But we're going to fix that over time, and we're making a good start with this year's budget. As the councilman said, we also had a report last night on the 710 That's been a big piece of it. I'll only add to his comments to say, it's been a year. It's funny, when I interviewed, I knew nothing about it. And I got the job offer, I think, in the beginning of June, but I wasn't able to come until the end of August. And in between, on August 15th of 2022, we got the deed for I think it's a total of 60 acres, but 50 acres in one contiguous parcel. And so I've learned a great deal about it since I got here, and it's exciting. It's a real opportunity to build and be a model for the rest of the nation about what, rebuilding a community can really be. We've been spending the year doing a lot of things, including appointing the working group, having them take a tour, have meetings and whatnot. But also on the internal side, I have 2 assistant city managers working on that project. They have other duties, but it's Brenda Harvey-Williams and David Reyes. Brenda having a Parks Community Services background. David Reyes was the former planning director, so he has a big land use background. Just yesterday, we hired Wendy Macias, who's going to be a senior project manager. She will be 100% full-time. So she started yesterday, and that's intended so that we can keep the project moving forward. We can all be available and work on it, but we need someone to really take on that laboring oar on that project. And then last night, also the council approved a contract with Point C. This is a consultancy firm that works on many transportation issues. David Granis, Tony Harris. Tony Harris used to be the head of Caltrans. So that's going to be invaluable to us as we move forward on the projects, because at its core, we have to worry about the transportation aspect of that area. And finally, we have 2 RFPs out. One RFP, they both close at the end of the month. One will be to look at historically what has the 710 been about, so that we all start when we rebuild with and acknowledge, we can look at, we can understand, we can have a shared understanding of what the history of the 710 was and the efforts that led to where we are today. And then the second one is with the consultancy that's going to help us create a master plan, not in the sense of a master plan that an institution would have that on file with planning, but more of a visioning master plan of where we want collectively, we all decide, or not we all decide, but we all have input into, and the council will decide as a policy matter what we do with those 50 acres. Councilmember also mentioned the Caltrans homes. We think there was a bill that the state passed and the governor signed that said any vacant Caltrans homes can be bought by the city for the price they were paid for back whenever they were taken, 50s, 60s, or whenever it was. And then the difference when we sell it at fair market value can be used for affordable housing in other parts of the city. So we've gotten a list of 17 already, and we've been looking at those to see what we can do. We've looked to see if there's any that Habitat for Humanity can help us refurbish. We want to make sure that they maintain, to the extent they have historic character, that they maintain that historic character. We want to make sure that whoever does buy it at fair market value is going to invest in them, is going to live in them, and is going to make it a beautiful part of this community. Let's see. Affordable housing and homelessness, they're 2 different things, but they're very closely related. And it's, we're doing a lot better than most places. Homelessness it's a regional issue. So, we're always going to have to deal with homelessness here in Pasadena. It's going to be an ongoing problem. But, I'm from Northern California, as the council member said. But when I come down here, I see that we have a homelessness problem here in Pasadena. But then I'll get invited to downtown LA. And you guys will know this better than me. I'm still learning. But I went down the 110, got off on 9th Street, and made a left. And I said, oh, my God, what happened? Where am I? And when you start to compare, you see the difference. You see we've made a lot of progress here in Pasadena. I can tell you the numbers from what I've read. In the 2010, 2012 timeframe, we had about, what they call the point-in-time count, we had about 1,200 homeless. Today, that number's dropped to about 559, of which about 300 are in shelters, and it's about 200 and some odd number that are unsheltered on the streets. And we're working every day on that issue. We have 2 what are called PORT teams. I forget now what PORT stands for. Maybe the chief can yell it out.
Pasadena Outreach Response.
But it's a team of firefighters, social workers, care providers, trying to, make relationship, build with the chronically homeless, go out there every day, take them a cup of coffee, earn their trust, offer them services. You might be surprised to know that for chronic homeless, it takes about 17 encounters before someone is willing to accept services. And we're just going to keep at it until we can get folks in services, get them permanently placed, get them what they call wraparound services, so that they're off the street and in a better place. So we'll continue to work on that. But in the meanwhile, I wanted to comment that we've had, over the summer, we had about 565 units of affordable housing in the city itself being built. It's an incredible number. You might be familiar, just recently they did the, I think I'm gonna go like that because of some light. They did the ribbon cutting of what's called Pasadena Studios at 280 North Oakland. That's gonna be 180 micro units. They're very, very small. I forget the exact number of square feet, but it's less than 400 square feet, but it's at a very affordable rate. They're leasing up now, and that'll help some people who have limited means to at least have a place to rest their head. It has a kitchen, it has a bathroom, and we're very, it's cutting edge micro units, and, we'll see how that goes. And if it meets with a lot of success, you'll probably see more of those. We're also just currently pleased about the Salvation Army. They have the Hope Center, and that's right there on Walnut, and it's about 65 units, again, taking veterans and others who are homeless and offering them a place to stay with a lot of support services. So that's going to be real exciting. The last ribbon cutting I'll tell you about was this past Saturday. We did the ribbon cutting for Union Street. That was repaved and redone in a new way to have a separated bike lane to try to keep our cyclists safe. It's going to take it's a new way of doing things, so it's going to take, as Bob let me know, a lot of education about the new way of riding a bike on that street in particular. So you can look out. We'll have some meetings coming up to tell you exactly how it's structured, how you're supposed to work and drive down that street or ride your bike or walk down that street. So that's pretty exciting. Just a few updates left. I'm going to let the chief talk about this, but we've made some very important arrests recently. One on a murder that happened. Thankfully, we haven't had too many murders in Pasadena. We are actually up to 4 for all of 2023. That's 4 too many. But most of them have been sort of related to domestic issues. One was not. One was way up at Angeles Crest Highway, and it was part of what some gang members have been doing in other parts of the county. But they did it here in Pasadena. Our Pasadena PD got on it, and I don't remember exactly how many days it was, but it was less than 7, and those folks were in custody. We also, and I'll let the chief talk about it, made some arrests of folks who are burglarizing and robbing at the Macy's and at some other places. So he'll tell you more about that. Very proud of our police department for that excellent work. I'll skip the Central Library. The council member already talked about that, but you'll be hearing more and more about that as we find a way to bring the beautiful library back. Maybe the one comment I'll make is, it's probably going to cost on the order of $150 million to bring it back from being red tagged so it's seismically safe. And that's just, we have to do that. You can't have a building that's going to fall down in the middle of an earthquake. But once you open up the guts and do that work, it makes all the sense in the world for a building that's 100 years old to replace the pipes, the electric work, the ducts, and that's going to add on some of it. But if we don't do it now, we're going to have to do it as the pipes get even older, and then you have to, go in and reopen, and it's going to cost twice as much. So the end product will be more on the order of $200 million plus, but I think it's the right thing to do to preserve it for the next century, for the generations to come to enjoy our beautiful library and to rethink what a community library is in the 21st century, especially one so grand and historic as our Central Library. And then finally, I do want to mention that what's going to happen in the next few months is the City Council passed a resolution setting a goal of being carbon-free on our water and power, on the power side, carbon-free by 2030. We're working on that. It's an aggressive goal, but we're going to do our best when we're doing what's called an Integrated Resources Plan, or an IRP, to talk about, how do you get there? What's the plan to go carbon-free? The delimiter and the hard part of the challenge is going to be the affordability and trying to get there and not have the rates go up too much. As you know, Inflation has already been high. People are struggling to make ends meet. And one thing that concerns me as city manager is we did have a slight increase in our homeless count this year. And one of the biggest increases was among seniors. And I can't help but think that one of the reasons for that is a lot of seniors are on fixed incomes, and when you have high inflation at the 7-8% level, they're having more and more trouble making ends meet. So if you have energy prices rise too much more, it'll be really difficult on those seniors and others on fixed incomes. So we have to just be mindful of that as we try to do our level best to reach that goal. Two last things I want to mention. This Saturday, the Hispanic Heritage Month Festival, well, the whole month from September 15th to October 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month, so there's a whole lot of different programs that are going to be available. I hope you take advantage, enjoy it. One that I want to raise that's probably the biggest one is the Parade and Festival. It's going to be this Saturday, starts at 10 a.m. At the corner of Las Robles, and I forget the cross street. I don't know if anybody knows. But up on the north side of Los Robles is going to come all the way down to City Hall, and then there will be a festival there at City Hall. What's that?
We're going to go back to City Hall.
Going back to City Hall. So there will be the parade piece and then the festival celebration at City Hall. And that starts at 10. I don't know how long it takes to walk down to City Hall, but however long that takes, and then the festival at City Hall until 4 o'clock. So I hope you all take some time to go out to City Hall and enjoy that. And then finally, I just had lunch today with David Eads, the CEO of the tournament, and the planning for the annual New Year's parade is well underway. It is a well-oiled machine. It's going to go fabulously, so you can look forward to this year's parade coming up as always, and we're excited about it. So with that, thank you so much.
Any Ohio State fans would know what street that was, the cross street up on North Los Robles. Buckeye. It's Los Robles and Buckeye is where the parade will make that turn. So, Miguel, don't go too far, though. I want to open it up to questions. I thought it might be best for questions, speaker by speaker. So, Miguel, don't stray. We're going to do some questions here. Any questions for Miguel about any of the things that he presented on? Or he did such a comprehensive job. Yes, please. Oh, there are ways, and I've heard them, believe me. But let me repeat the question. I think there may have been a question in there somewhere, but about the survey for the Colorado Street Bridge, and the comment was there was no way to respond, none of them, none of the above, basically. And I have gotten a number of comments like that. It's a difficult situation, but we're dedicated to finding a solution for sure. So, other questions for Miguel? Bruce? Question is funding for new park projects in the budget.
Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Rec Department, excuse me. One thing I would recommend to you, if I could, Miguel, just as that question is pondered, is the city puts out every year, and I'm a big fan of this, it's called the Budget in Brief. And if you ask Justin Chapman, our terrific field rep, he's back there. Justin, you come give us a wave. We will get you a copy, like an electronic copy of the Budget in Brief. You know, our total operating budget is this thick, and then our total capital budget is this thick. And our capital budget runs for, 5 years out. But the Budget in Brief really is a quick thumbnail picture on like that kind of question. How much Parks and Rec? How much City Attorney? How much City Council? What are the changes year over year and all? But can you answer that, Miguel, about?
Sure. So in this year's budget, yeah, in this year's budget, the big thing for parks that was added is the Jackie Robinson pool that's opening up and making it a year-round pool. There was nothing in the operating budget that added a new park, but we're always looking for new ones, and there might be some opportunities in this whole 710 stub area for some additional parks. And if so, that would go as part of the capital plan. And we have something like more than $1 billion in capital needs, and we don't have that much money, anything near that. But it would be a priority, and we would tee it up for the council's consideration. So, last night we had on the consent calendar the rejection of bids for Viña Vieja because they came in real high. And I actually pulled that item for discussion and said I was very troubled that we couldn't move forward. And the staff assured me we're committed to doing it. It's a plan for 12. We want to get there. The current bids were just for, I think, the first 2.
But we hear you, Bruce, and pickleball is a very popular sport, and we're committed to seeing that as well. No question, yeah. Well, and even back to Bruce's comment about the budget, we don't have any money, or we have a good budget, but, we have needs that exceed that year over year. And, economics is the science of human choice in a world with limited resources. And you really have to learn that when you're on a city council or in any public role, that there are always going to be more good projects than there are. But this one is good, and it qualifies, and we're committed to making it happen. So other questions for, yes, please. A newlywed, here, question, yeah. You oversold yourself on that one, my friend, let me tell you, yeah. Certainly. So the sports fans, this is old hat. What we've seen is, and there is a sadness that one has, I think, if you're a traditional, college sports fan, but, it's all about the money now for these universities. And a lot of that's for the kids, and I support that because the kids are creating tremendous value, for these universities. So they're now getting these name, image, and likeness deals that are like in the millions and millions of dollars. I read the other day, or I think my son showed me, there was a 15-year-old who has like, 8-figure name, image, and likeness. And I just don't know what that teaches us about working hard and deferred gratification and all that. So the schools, the Pac-12 is, for all intent and purpose, dead. It has 2 schools left. Just this week, those 2 schools sued the rest of the conference to block certain actions and to try to regain something that resembles the Pac-12. Ironic in a football season where currently 8 of the top 25 teams in the country are from the Pac-12, from a conference that basically doesn't exist anymore. So you can tell there's more than just what happens on the field going on there. So with UCLA and SC moving to the Big Ten, it's going to be very good for the Rose Bowl, because you're going to see, instead of UCLA playing, and they'll always have some preseason games, obviously, but now you're going to see teams like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State and Wisconsin coming, teams that have always drawn a great crowd here, because they've been associated with New Year's Day. They've come out only for the Rose Bowl. So certainly in the short term, 5-10 years, as that league cycles through visiting games at the Rose Bowl, and attendance does help the Rose Bowl tremendously in terms of revenues. So yeah, it is. Now, I've been cautiously supportive of the family golf. I've seen the studies, I've seen the lighting plan and all. Problem is, the golf course is an important adjunct to the stadium. And there's a balance between how many events we want to do at the stadium because of those impacts on the neighbors, and what else we can do at the golf course. We definitely need to reinvest in the golf course. I think it's going to be very positive. And I think a lot of the concerns are maybe the fear of the unknown, that they're being overblown a bit because of the fear of the unknown. So I'm not convinced that it would be the end of the world by any means. I think a lot of us would have a lot of fun down there. I really do. So, but it has to be carefully managed, no question. So, question there, and then I'll come up there. Yeah. You want to start, and I'll jump in? Yeah.
Yeah, I was careful to say, that we're going to be able to have no homeless, because it's as I said, a regional problem, and we're putting a lot of dollars into trying to solve it. We have not just one port team now, we have 2. We also have what's called the HOPE team that works with the police department to bring out and work with folks who are in mental health crisis. Our police department is out there every day, and our housing department has done exemplary work. We're actually very fortunate. Money for housing comes through what are called COCs, or Continuum of Care. In all of LA County, 10 million people, there are 4 COCs. We have one, the city of Glendale has one, the city of Long Beach has one. And then the county, which is enormous, the city of LA and the other 84 cities all share one COC. So we have some flexibility that, say, Monrovia doesn't have. And we use that. That's why you see us opening, what did I say, 180 plus 65, 245 units right here in Pasadena. We're going to continue doing the work. We're dedicated. We hear you. We're working as hard as we can. And it's going to take all of us to really keep at it and try to minimize the impacts. But what I would urge you is, and it sounds like you're doing it, call the police, make a report on the CSC app so that we can go out and try to offer folks the services they need. It is a complex legal issue that you've understand and know that the Ninth Circuit has made particular rules for, so we have to abide by those rules. But we're going to keep doing our level best.
Well, no question, that's wrong, and I do think you need to make a good record about that. You're doing the right thing by calling the police for any trespass. You may have to seek a restraining order so that now you've got probable cause when the police come back the next time. But this is a spectacularly complicated problem, and I would say, first of all, I wouldn't describe anything, and I know these people too. Juliana and I saw them Saturday morning. We walked our dogs from our home, which is up by the golf course in Annandale, down, and we walked right by that bus stop, and we were concerned about those individuals. I know exactly who you're talking about. We went down to Starbucks, and there were a couple of them there too, and it is concerning. The problem is we have a complete dereliction of duty by the state and federal government on this issue. We used to have resources and programs for people. When you talk about homeless, my view, there are sort of two big groups, right? You have the people that are, had no safety net and lost that job, or a spouse walked away and they're living in their car. If you volunteer at the bad weather shelter, you will see people you can't believe. You will not accept that they're homeless people because they look just like us, and they're sleeping in their car because of life's accidents. But there's another group that I think you're describing, which is kind of mislabeled service resistant. And the reason that's a mislabel is we don't have the services to offer them. Now, many of them may indeed be service resistant. They don't want to be. But what the courts have said, and I'm a lawyer, Miguel's a lawyer, we sort of are very wonkish about this, but there's a case right now working its way through the courts called Grants Pass. Grants Pass is a town in Oregon, and in Grants Pass, they have an ordinance that says you can't camp on public property, And just think about it, if we wanted to go on vacation with our family, I couldn't set up in the property behind your beautiful, development. And that happens to be open space. When we entitled that whole area, there is open space there, but that means it's public property. And what the courts say in our part of the country is you have to allow homeless people to live there unless you as a city can't offer them a bed. If you can offer them a bed, then you can enforce your rules around no camping, no sleeping, no loitering, although that's a little bit different. And so we're trying on the one hand really hard to get those beds so that we can enforce the law. We're also making the case to the courts. There's a great dissent by a guy that I actually trained in the U.S. Attorney's Office. I can't take credit for him, but named Dan Collins, who's a Ninth Circuit judge. He's very conservative politically, but on this one, he just nailed it. He says essentially the majority is saying to the city, you cede all of your police power and land use restrictions because of a very sketchy record of people that say they don't have anywhere else to go. And I'll tell you, we're going to lose the whole thing because we got to make the donuts if we're going to be compassionate to anybody, right? We have to have a strong economy and commercial activity. We have to feel clean and safe. If we don't have those things, and my office, my day job is downtown too, and I'm telling you, it looks like a developing country, or like just the unimaginable. So we got to keep plugging away on this, and we're trying to build more housing. Every authority tells us the more housing you have, the better it gets. And we're going to continue to push for programs that are state, because we don't want to build a continuum of care, permanent supportive care, and then have 10,000 people come from Skid Row downtown, where by some estimates there are 40,000 unhoused persons there. Just come up to Pasadena, and we don't have the legal right to discriminate based on where they came from or what have you. So this needs to be solved at a higher level of government. And I'll tell you, it's an election season. There are even some candidates in this room for statewide office. Talk to them as you exercise your franchise to vote. And what are we going to do? Because we need help at the local level. We really do. Let me move on. This gentleman's been very patient, and then there are a few more. Do you have the mic, Justin? Well, you know, I was a prosecutor for many years, and I have no doubt you're right, but getting from that to an actual arrest, even if we had a DA that would enforce, you know, possession charges, for us to have a team of officers and with officer safety and all the rest arrive and investigate, and by that time those drugs are gone. He may be under the influence, but you know, that's not a charge that the current DA is going to bring probably. The chief will know more about that than I do, certainly. But you know, I hear what you're saying, but it's like pushing, you know, sand up a rope at some level. And if we had the programs so that we just could say, I'm sorry, sir, not here. You know, if you need help, we can provide it. But if not, then we have a problem. Yes, in the back there, you've been patient as well. Yeah, so we've got some action items just based on this conversation. I'll engage with Ralph's. I know the management there well. No, of course. And but I do believe the speaker is right that if you can document, we had a situation, I won't go into details because there was litigation and all that, but about a business in another part of town where the neighbors had real complaints, but there was never a clear record about it, you know, so it's absolutely true. To the extent you can document it, let us talk to Ralph's. You know, I don't know, as I sit here, what their permit requires or doesn't require, and we may not have the ability to immediately impose new terms and conditions, but we can tuck that away. I know, for example, the Save-On at Fillmore and Arroyo Parkway, I still call it Save-On, but it's CVS, the pharmacy there. And, you know, we imposed some conditions when that was there. They have a security team there, a security guard and a loss prevention guy. I actually witnessed an armed robbery there. And, you know, I called the former chief on his cell phone because I had his number right there, and they made an arrest immediately. But it is scary, and I'm sorry that you're going through that. I would say, you know, I know how it feels, but I wouldn't describe their lives as winning in any way, shape, or form. You know, I think it's far from that. But I know how you feel, that you're sort of losing, fighting a battle here that you're losing. Yeah, I hear you.
We hear you, and we will work with you.
Let's follow up. Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much. I do want to move on to the chief, so maybe I just see a couple of hands, and so let's, Chief, Miguel, wait one more sec, because I do want everybody, yes, please. Right here, Justin, and then we'll go back to the final two. No, what I want to do is study this issue. We've just gotten some input from neighbors who are worried about it, and it's like they're beginning in West Pasadena, and they're laying out 10 proposed new cell towers. So people are concerned about it on a host of levels. And all I'm here tonight to tell you is that they're starting the application process again. We're going to be on top of it, and we will push out on our website and on email if you're on our email list, or social media as well. We'll push out that info. So right in front of you there, Justin.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sure. No, it's quite all right. Let me try to touch on those. Thank you for the comment about the cell towers. We do want to be very involved in that going forward. On the I think your next question was about carbon-free by 2030. We did adopt a new ordinance requiring that for multifamily housing, the kitchen appliances and water heaters and the like be electric. So we did do that, but we haven't done anything with existing single-family homes, and I don't think we've touched new single-family homes either, if I recall. What the future holds, I don't know, because you know, if we're not here to enjoy the planet, all of this becomes irrelevant. And, you know, as we've seen kind of for the first time ever, a hurricane hit California, and we've seen Lahaina, a 250-year-old whaling town, burned to the ground, and, you know, all the problems of climate change. So, but the thing you're concerned about, you're fine. And then the last point, I think, was about COVID. We are seeing, if you will, like a resurgence, as the city manager mentioned. I talked to the public health director the other day about this. It's hard to judge because we've done a good job at pushing out self-testing. So, and we don't get that data. You know, we have a public health department, one of only 3 in the state that is a city health department. So they're invaluable, but we don't get the data on the cases if people just self-test at home and stay home for a week or, you know, shelter at home type thing. It's not like when everybody was going in when it was so brand new. But we're not doing anything one way or the other currently with any federal mandates. There's no state of emergency presently. So, and for medications, your healthcare professional should be free to decide the best care for you, and that's an opinion I feel strongly about across the board. So, any others? Maybe the last question, because when we got to get to the chief, and we've only got about 15 minutes left. Yeah, I'll let Miguel handle that if you know. I can't imagine that is legal if you don't have a license to do that.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, and those operations are run by the RBOC, and I meet regularly with Jens Whedon, who's the CEO and general manager. I will raise it with him and ask, and if we can do something about it to move it closer to the Rose Bowl, I'll ask him to do that. I don't know, but I will ask. Maybe I can get your contact information, and I can put you in touch with Jens Whedon. He'll have an answer for you. We would, you know, they run the Rose Bowl area. That's the contract or operating agreement we have with them. We are responsible for the homes. We'll work on it together. But I'll reach out to him and I'll get your information.
Justin has your information so we can get back to you. Okay, do you have a real quick one? I hate to shut you out. Yeah, I'm surprised to hear you say that about the relationship because we work and worked very closely with South Pasadena regularly. So on all topics related to that corridor. And if you need further proof, we got the state to kill a freeway by working together, and now we have the land back. So, you know, let us have your information. We have hundreds of millions of dollars of transportation money for projects now to address the transportation needs of the corridor, given that the freeway's now been killed, and I am positive that that will be one of the things up for discussion. I will also tell you, though, that you know, kids that are going to go 100 miles an hour are difficult to stop, sadly, and you know, there are varying opinions about whether the neighbors want, nobody wants 100 miles an hour, but sometimes it's better to move the traffic out of the neighborhood than to slow it down with speed bumps and the like and just sort of prolong the problem. So, but we're going to be all over this in this whole visioning project for the 710. So, okay, thank you very much. I want to thank Miguel again. Thank you. And I want to maybe even, because we're running a little short on time, before I bring the chief up, I just want to give some thank yous quickly. You know, I already mentioned HMRI. That's Mark Dixon, the COO, Wendy Welch-Keller, Paul Roach. KPAS is always great to our office and all the support for the community. Bobby Ferguson and George Filardo, the executive director, is here. I introduced Chief Augustine and Captain Eklund from the fire department earlier. Art Shute, our deputy chief, is here with Gene Harris, our police chief. And I do have a few raffle items, so remember to stick around afterwards. But I want to bring the chief up now, and I want to, as I do, share an anecdote with you. I think it was at least 25 years ago. I was still either in the U.S. Attorney's Office or just come out, and I was asked by the chief of police of Monterey Park to interview for captains. And I don't know if you all are familiar with this, but particularly in law enforcement, sometimes in other public positions, the decision maker will bring in peers to conduct interviews. And on this particular day, we were interviewing Monterey Park, a good-sized police department, and Dan Cross was the chief. He's a wonderful man. He invited me and Bernard Parks from L.A., who I think was like a deputy chief at that time, maybe, and another gentleman to come and interview the captains, or the lieutenants rather, who were applying to be captains in Monterey Park. And at the end of the interviews, the chief came in and we gave him our feedback, and we were really impressed by this skinny young lieutenant who had been a lieutenant for about 15 minutes, but felt he was ready to be a captain. And the chief said, the truth is, the best captain in that whole bunch is going to be Gene Harris. And that was, of course, the young man that we had interviewed. And he said, you keep an eye on him because he's going to have a tremendous career. He's not ready just yet. He didn't get that captaincy. He needed to sort of be a lieutenant, at least for like one shift or, or week or something. But he was ready to conquer the world. And sure enough, I was so pleased then to see his name come back around. He'd been the chief in San Gabriel and then was hired as our new chief. And I'm going to say that was about a year ago, Chief, as well? Yeah.
9.5 months.
Yeah, well, so, yeah. So come on up, Chief, and tell us a little bit.
Well, he's right about at least one thing. I was skinny back then. I think I've eaten that, Lieutenant, and here we are today. But thank you for having me here. I appreciate the turnout. It's awesome to see folks come out and really take an interest in what's happening in their communities. It's really, really important. That is not the case in all places, and so to start this thing off, I think you should all be very proud of yourself that you are having this engagement. I am proud that we get an opportunity as a police department to help you with that engagement and be involved with what it is we're trying to do to make these communities wonderful and wonderful places to live. So I really appreciate the ability to stand up here and talk to you. Like I said, it's been about 9 months, so it's still relatively new. I'm not new to this business. I've been in the business for over 30 years, but in the San Gabriel Valley for most of that career. Got an opportunity to work for the LA County Sheriff's Department, then the Monterey Park Police Department, then the chief at the San Gabriel Police Department, and now chief in Pasadena. And so I'm trying to bring with me a whole host of experiences, a host of relationships, and those kind of things that we can bring to bear to kind of impact those problems that we're facing, a lot of the things that you're talking about here in Pasadena. One of the things that I like to tell people, and it's probably part of the answer to some of the questions that you were asking the city manager, and that is we have to find ways to kind of, one, stretch resources. That's just the nature of the businesses that we're in. We have to understand that nothing happens quickly in government and public entities. That stick-to-itiveness, I'm going to go ahead and create some words while I'm up here too. We have to stick to it sometimes when we're calling and trying to get things done. But the one promise that we can make you from every office in our city government, from the city council, the mayor's office, to the city manager, down through the police departments and all of the others, is that we're committed to trying to get it done and working with you to get it done. The 3 E's are typically the foundation of my decision-making process when we're trying to solve problems. That's education. We want to educate people. We want to teach everybody, each one teach one, and get everybody on board with where we're trying to go. That's both inside and outside of the organization, where we can come together and do the things that need to be done. Then there's the engineering piece, right? Let's find some engineering solutions to how we get things done. I remember on one of those interviews, I was asked, what do you do about homeless people sleeping on the grass in a park? This was one of the older interviews. And everybody was looking for those real, deeply rooted answers. And I just asked a simple question, and how often do we water the grass? And on what timing cycle do we water the grass? And if we water the grass 1 time for 10 minutes, why can't we water it 5 times for 2 minutes? And let's keep the grass wet where people don't want to sleep on it and they'll find somewhere else to go. I'm not the brightest bulb in the box. More often than not, I'm dumb, but I know I'm dumb, so it almost makes me smart. So those are some of the simple things that we try to apply within our police department, and certainly with some of our other departments, is looking for solutions, both educationally and then engineering. Let's do those things before we strap on our enforcement equipment and go out and start enforcing things. But in some instances, you're talking about some of the homeless issues, enforcement is appropriate, and we can certainly enforce those crimes that are associated with homeless, even though homelessness is not a crime. But if they're out there and they're doing drugs and they're out there and they're doing things that go against the community wants and needs, we can certainly come out there and we will respond to every call that you call us on. I can't promise the most robust response times in every case because there's a lot of other policing to be done. But where we can, we will get there expeditiously and come out there and take care of the problems that need to be taken care of. And we have no problem with arresting people who are using drugs, even if our DA won't convict them. The bottom line is we start building cases. We want to make sure you have a quality of life and that we're responding to what you need done. Now, I'd be lying to you and insulting your intelligence if I thought those arrests were going to lead to something in the long term. I'm not going to insult you that way, but sometimes those arrests are done because they're legal, because they're moral, they're ethical. We do it safely, but it's also to solve a community need, and so we're not opposed to that. But we really are trying to find other solutions to get things done. But where there's a crime that exists, we will. It's very difficult to deal with issues on private property than it is to deal with them on public property, but not impossible. We've done some things that you heard from the city manager and the councilman that when we go out there and deal with corporate and we touch base with people, sometimes that motivates people to get things done the way the community wants it done. And so working together, we can do that. And the police department is also a partner in reaching out to some of these folks. We do keep track of calls for service. We do keep track of some of the nuisance issues that are happening out there so that we can use those statistics and things to try and drive up or develop another problem-solving tool to come out there and help you out. So feel free to call us. I know it is frustrating. It is as frustrating as heck to want to come out there and do something and really have your hands tied. You mentioned, Councilmember, that this is an election season. Let's make those votes count, right? Let's really study those people who are going to get into office and do the things that we want them to do, both locally, regionally, and statewide. Those are very important things to do. So I was recently the president of the LA County Police Chiefs. I'm now the first past president. And I was there for 18 months, and we were dealing with a lot of some of the transition in local county government, some of those things, state government, legislation and stuff that we wanted to have some impact in. And so we're constantly going down there and trying to really sway the folks to do what we think is best for members of the community. But when laws change, we have to act accordingly. And so the opportunity that we get as citizens is to cast our vote and make sure that vote counts, and that we talk to our local folks like you're doing tonight, and that you're talking to your regional folks and engaged in some of those politics to make sure that we're getting things driven in the direction you would like to have them driven. So I just passed that out to you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure you all heard about the incident there where we had, I mean, it's a horrific tale. And, you know, you read about the cases where there's controversy or what have you. I mean, I can't tell you how frequently our police department deals with just unbelievably dangerous situations with persons with loaded guns. I get a report every day about noteworthy police activity, and I'm amazed how often people who shouldn't have guns are carrying guns illegally, and our police deal with it, and there's no use of force, there's no incident, there's no nothing. This particular case was horrific. It was a man who was in jail for being a felon in possession of a firearm. If you're a felon, you can't possess a gun. That's one of the rights that you lose. And it's illegal to carry a loaded gun in most cases anyway. His girlfriend bailed him out, brought him back to that apartment building in Pasadena. He thanked her by murdering her and throwing her over the balcony. And then we had a situation where our police department had to deal with, is this going to be like a Mandalay Bay where he's going to be up there shooting at people that are walking by and the like? Same thing after many hours. And I can't tell you how taxing it is on, the whole system, but mostly on the officers that are negotiating and dealing with all these scenarios, knowing that they're being examined in hindsight, in slow motion. And it ended, without incident. And so my office, I don't know about the mayor or anybody else, but my office is having a meeting with the tenants at the building, and we're going to talk about all of these things, and we'll make sure that you're invited, because it's horrific for sure. Ma'am, I told you I was in that CVS and a gun was pulled. And I'm in that situation that I've heard about my whole life, but everything goes into slow motion. So, okay, yes, sir. And Chief, if you have anything to add, and by the way, my understanding of the facts, is probably pales in comparison to the chief, but I summarized what I understood that case to be. Yeah. Yes, sir. Well, let me use the Ralph's example. Have you talked to the business where this is all going on?
Yes.
What do they tell you?
Call the police.
Well, that's unfortunate because they have the power to resolve those disagreements with their custodians and their food servers and the like. Fair enough, but I think if you want the problem to end, you should also voice your concerns to the hotel, because believe me, they have the power to change that. And in terms of the permits, I don't know. We will look into that for sure. And I don't know if it's a PD response. Again, when we have somebody barricaded in an apartment with a loaded firearm that they've already shown they'll use, it's hard to divert police resources for an otherwise peaceful demonstration. But you're right, you shouldn't be kept up awake at night with noise that's not permitted. So we'll look into it. Maybe code enforcement can play a role. Maybe just good old-fashioned talking to one another. Maybe I can get involved, or our city staff can get involved and try to get some accommodations for you, because you're right. I know what you're describing. So, other questions for the chief? Okay, thank you, Chief. Great job as always. All right, thank you all. We'll stick around for a little bit, but thank you so much.